Hey everyone, welcome to the This Week I'm Into podcast. I'm Pete Tyler, and today we are discussing youth sports and coaching. Later on, we'll be having a chat with our mutual friend Alex Cochrane. And today I'm with my friend and co-host Paul Amberguglio. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm pumped like a bike tire.
Okay, I like that. This is kind of an exciting one. We both have experience with, certainly youth sports growing up, but definitely coaching as we've entered our young adulthood. So, Paul, do you want to talk about just your experience with coaching and youth sports?
Yeah, I actually don't think that I've been in a coaching role off the top of my head in any regular capacity, but it's something that I've wanted to try. And actually, funny enough, Alex, who's going to be chatting with us later, is a coach for a baseball team. And when I had moved back to Seattle, where he also lives, I was telling him I want to kind of participate as an assistant coach because like one of my goals is like, if when I have kids, I want to be their baseball coach. I just think that would be really fun.
What a wholesome goal.
Yeah, and I want to, kind of like learn how to do that because I think that's probably more, well, I would hope that it's a little bit more than just showing up. I'm sure, a lot of parents do that and that's great, but I'd like to be able to provide some guidance. So most of what I'm thinking of is when we were looking into this podcast was like my experience as a kid. I did travel team baseball and obviously like soccer and all those other sports, but I would say that the youth coaching side, I'm probably going to closer to the aspects of like your traveling competitive teams or like your high school level teams where you have like more serious coaching. So I'm probably seeing this more as a player view and a wannabe coach than an actual coach. But how about you, Hans? I know you've actually coached some kids.
Yeah, okay, so I can definitely dive into it here. Yes, a couple months after I moved to Chicago, I started coaching for a youth soccer club. So I grew up playing soccer among a variety of different sports, but definitely my main passion was soccer. So one thing that was really just a personal goal of mine is like, I just love and enjoy this sport so much. I loved playing it. I love watching it. How can I get more involved? And the idea of coaching just kind of slowly influenced me more and more. And then finally, I looked up like youth soccer coaching in my area, and there was like a call for coaches from one of the clubs. So I just emailed this club, had a chat with them. They invited me to come shadow. I did shadow. I eventually got my license in soccer, U.S. soccer coaching. And we can hop into that licensure process later too, if we want to talk about that. But, and then I got my own team. So I had I had a middle school team, but it was a club team, but middle school aged. And then I also had a high school aged team that I would help out with a lot. But my main team was the middle school age team. And it was just, it was a personally very rewarding experience. I can just maybe talk a little bit about the way it was set up, but it was kind of like, is your standard, club practice. It was 2 to 3 practices a week and then 1 to 2 games a weekend. The way the league was set up is like Chicago is so dense with youth teams that we were playing in the 5th division. And so this team that I had, it was kind of a combo team. I had the second level team in this age group and the third level team in this age group. And we were playing in the 5th division. So kind of like, if anyone's familiar with, the English Premier League or any, familiar soccer league outside of the United States, these divisions had a relegation and promotion system. So if you've never heard of that, it's like, so we were playing the 5th division, right? If you got first or second within the division, you would get promoted. And then the next season you would play in the 4th division. But if you got last or second to last, you would get what's called relegated. And then you would play in the 6th division the next season. And ultimately, it was up to the coach if they felt the team was actually ready to make that move. But I just bring that up to say that this was like, compared to what I had grown up, was actually like a very highly competitive league.
I didn't realize that youth soccer had a relegation system.
Yeah,
I never
crazy.
Played soccer competitively, but that's nuts. I don't know if I ever had that kind of like pressure. I feel like it was mostly just like weekend tournaments and stuff that you would like travel in your state to go to. But that's like a whole different level of intensity.
100%. And I will say that league I grew up in also didn't have promotion or relegation. And I think that's probably because I grew up in Idaho where there wasn't even enough teams to make more than one division. So that might have been part of it.
That definitely doesn't help.
Yeah, but there's some insane pressure, but it was really fun. But I will say in my first season of coaching, we missed a promotion spot by a single point, and that hurt a lot. That's the pain of the game. It's the hope that kills you, from quoting, Ted Lasso, quoting what people say about, soccer. It's the hope that kills you.
Unrelated, I'm honestly shocked. That sounds insane.
Yeah.
The big thing that I've noticed, and kind of just thinking on how the Chicago team had a relegation system, is hearing what Alex's kids, like his team, right? I think they're, middle school age. When he's talking to me about it, is very in line with that. Is they've gotten a lot more intense. So whether that just be like the quality of the practice in terms of like the types of drills they're running, or like the workouts they're doing, or even like the equipment that they have, is just way beyond what I had even heard of at that age. And maybe it existed, but it's just not something that I was well aware of. And then also, in addition to, or kind of like another aspect, is just the amount of games that they get to play. It sounds like, I don't know how much your Chicago kids travel, but it just sounds like they, are playing like twice the amount of tournaments or something like that I would have played at the same age.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really, more demanding in some senses, but if you like it, right, way more involvement, like way more fun for the kids, I would hope.
I agree. I mean, we were doing about one travel tournament a season, so that would be like going down to St. Louis, or
when you were a kid,
up to Milwaukee. Or no, I'm talking about the team I'm coaching, or I was coaching.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was a kid, we were probably when I was a kid, we were probably doing 1 to 2 a season as well. Yeah.
But they definitely have more kids in Chicago. I think is probably a little different than what you're used to growing up in.
I just wanted to touch on some of the points that I really appreciate about youth sports and coaching. Is I just like thoroughly enjoyed it. I feel it's so personally rewarding, but you see these kids, like, they learn how to be part of a team, right? They have a chance to, be athletic, show leadership skills, and just like have a lot of fun with soccer. And the whole point of my team, because I was coaching, the second and third level team of this age group. We were like completely focused on the development of these players because they're all middle school players, right? And we like want to get them to the level where they're going to be able to make their high school teams. That was a huge part of my coaching philosophy, was just completely focused on the development of these players so that in the future they might be able to get on those highly competitive teams. There's a lot of pressure in youth sports, man. Like,
no, I think so.
Yeah.
Especially with that age, right? There's a lot, like you were saying, there's a lot of hope of like potentially being good. So it's not like, you're in high school and you're like, okay, I know I'm not going to make it pro in whatever this sport is.
Yeah.
In middle school, you're like, hey, I mean, even me, I was like, I thought that I could be better than I currently am when I was 12.
I know I'm certainly not the exception here, but I think if you asked me when I was like 8 to 12, probably what I wanted to when I grew up, I was like, oh yeah, professional soccer, like easy. That's the only thing I could ever imagine myself doing. But
now you've just shifted it to helping those guys.
Yeah, now hopefully
if you can't beat them,
the
you coach them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, whatever that saying was.
Paul, I just wanted to, ask you, obviously there's like some huge components about coaching that I absolutely love, but there's some like kind of, gripes I have with it too. Do you want to hear those, or is that too negative for this podcast?
No, I actually, I do want to hear them, and let me preface it because maybe you'll have some thoughts on it, because let me just touch on it really quick from like what I remember as a kid standpoint, because I think that your coaches when you're in a youth age group are very impactful. So, a lot of them were probably like my parents' friends, or sorry, not my parents' friends. A lot of them were probably other players' parents. So like my friends' parents, or, became my friends through the team.
Yeah.
And I think those were all fine. Like I never really attributed them to having like a lot of expectations for like leadership or like really good skills. Cause they're kind of just like helping out But when I
Yeah.
was on one of those more competitive teams, like I feel like I put a little bit more weight on the kind of comments that they would make, whether that be instructory in terms of like your skill, or even just like, you're at a game together and they're just kind of like shooting the shit,
Mm-hmm.
because they're kind of like that leadership on your team, right? And they're kind of like
100%.
coaching you on how to be on a team, like how to work together.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I just wanted to touch on is that I think that you have a lot of responsibility as a coach. And I think it's great when I've seen coaches like connect with kids.
Mm-hmm.
I like to see, like, for example, my dad coaches and he's always like, yeah, he basically has the humor of a seventh grader, right? So when he coaches like middle school teams, right, I feel like he really gets along with them. He really understands their humor. But like on the flip side, like I remember some of my baseball coaches like growing up, I feel like they accept bad examples for like what I now think is a responsible adult.
Yeah.
And I think that as a kid, you kind of emulate the adults that you're around.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there was like a lot of bad habits in like almost like they were bad people kind of habits, not just like bad baseball, that I think that coaches can accidentally instill in their coaches. So I think that's like one of those things that you have to kind of like learn the balance of, can I just screw around? How professional do I need to be? And you have to realize how much of a role model or like influence you are on the kids that you're working with.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with you, Paul. And I think we can all look back at our youth sport experience and remember at least one bad coach. And probably at the time, it was kind of like, oh, this coach is like, he's like the mean coach. But now when you look back at it as an adult, you're like, oh, like that guy was just actually bad at his job.
Yeah.
It was not a good coach. Yeah. So I hear you there. Some of the other gripes I just had with, coaching youth sports. I'm not, trying to solve the world's problems here, but I'm just saying that at least on the club level, and I'm talking mostly from a soccer perspective, but I'm sure this applies in a lot of different sports. But soccer is just what I'm most familiar with. Is there's a huge financial aspect to joining a club team. Like, you have to pay to join the club. You have to pay for uniforms. You have to pay to go on travel tournaments. And as part of the club does offer scholarship to some kids, at least the one I was working with, which would help, pay for things, but definitely not enough money to go around. So it's kind of like, if you want to play at this like really competitive level, like you have to have money to do it. That's like a little bit of an upsetting side to the youth sport and coaching world that I kind of got familiar with, unfortunately.
Yeah, you get into it because you want to like work with kids and play the sport. You
Yeah.
don't always want to be involved in like the business aspects of it.
Yeah, right. I'm not here to deal with like money and stuff, but I want everyone who wants to play should be able to play. But unfortunately, that's like not really the reality we live in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There's definitely aspects that I'm sure you don't expect to have to deal with. The other one, which I don't have to deal with, obviously, but I imagine is annoying, is like the parents aspect of it.
I have that written down as my next gripe. So that's like actually what I was going to talk about next.
Yeah, you go for it.
Well, no, I mean, you can add anything you want to this, Paul, but as far as parents go, I'm not like, this is not all parents. Like, there's some amazing parents out there that support their kids, support the team, ask the coach, like, how can I help out? Not being annoying about it, but really just truly asking how they can help the team. And then there's parents like how I said earlier, my philosophy as a coach was completely on the development of all kids. And since we were working with both the second and third level team, that meant equal playing time for every kid. And I stated that in my introduction email as a coach, and before the season started, my philosophy and how the season would look like. And then of course, like 3 games in, the parent of like the best striker on my team, and he was like a dang good player, comes up to me and she's like, why is my kid not playing more? Like he's got so much talent, like you should pretty much have him on the field all the time. And then I'm like, oh, like I'm just going through the whole thing again. Like, hey, like, listen, we're focused on development. Every kid deserves equal development in the position that we're in. So it was just like, I just don't like working with parents because they have one stake in the team, right? Which is their
For
kid.
sure.
But as the
Yeah.
coach, you are invested in everyone. So it's kind of a balancing act sometimes. So that was my other gripe I wanted to bring up. But it's not all
Yeah.
bad, but there is sometimes bad experiences.
Oh, for sure. And I think that it's important to point out some of the things you have to keep in mind or things that might be more difficult when you're like, oh, yeah, I'll just go coach the sport that, you like playing or you played a lot growing up.
Right.
So you're not shocked when you first try it out.
Yeah.
But I think with all that being said, the amount of joy I've seen people get out of doing that was more than worth it.
I 100% agree. Yep. I got gripes, but if in a perfect world, I could fix them. And maybe one day I'll be a club director and I'll do my best to fix them. But for now, I'm just happy to be able to coach. So
yeah. And to be honest, one of the things I hear least about people's issues, when they have to coach or, you're talking to people, I talk to people at work who's coached their kids in various sports and nobody ever complains about the kids. I mean, some kids are annoying, don't get me wrong, but I feel like that's never what people are most annoyed at.
Exactly. Yeah. Paul, well, I'll ask first, is there any other topics within this that you wanted to touch on before we keep on going? Because I do have some fun facts about youth sports for you, if you want to hear those.
How am I supposed to come up with anything when you say fun facts? Like we just have to dive right in.
Okay, well, I did my best to find some fun facts about youth sports, so I'm trying my best here. But we'll start off here. Paul, what do you think is the fastest growing youth sport in the United States?
I don't want to say pickleball because that doesn't seem like a youth sport. What about I wanted to say pickleball just because pickleball is going crazy, but if I had to actually put a guess in, I feel like it's still soccer.
It's pickleball.
I don't know if I see a lot of kids playing pickleball.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was kind of funny too because I'm not sure I have either, but
okay, you just saw that on pickleball.com.
Yeah, pickleball.facts.net told me that. Yeah, I will say for my fun facts, I scour the web for them, and I'm not like being the most discerning about where this is coming from, so always take it with a grain of salt. But it does say pickleball.
Thank you, Gemini AI.
Okay. Do you want to guess what the most popular youth team sport is?
Okay, that's got to be soccer.
Soccer's growing fast, but it's not the most popular.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what is it?
It's basketball.
Oh,
basketball's actually
about basketball.
Super popular within. I think the NBA has the youngest demographic of viewers out of any professional league. So basketball's very popular in youth sports.
You know what? This kind of goes with your comment on the cost of sports, and that's true of whether you're doing it in a competitive fashion or not. But it is always interesting the amount of money you have to spend playing like different sports.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure where every sport lies, but let's just say like golf, right? Obviously golf is expensive. Like you have to buy all the clubs, which are expensive.
Right,
you have to get like time on the golf course. And then there's things that are probably really cheap. Like I would think soccer is probably a relatively cheap one. I mean, you obviously have to buy shoes and stuff, but it's not that much extra equipment. Or like basketball, I imagine, is not that expensive because there's like free courts and stuff around all the time. Like if you really just want to go play. So I think that probably helps those kind of sports pick up pretty quick.
I agree. I think you touch on an issue that is, far beyond my expertise, but, there's a huge barrier of entry to a lot of sports. You talk about golf. I think lacrosse has tons of equipment. Things like tennis sometimes require, membership at a club. And it's kind of like the money thing that, people don't have or people don't, aren't willing to budget for youth sports. Is like, yeah, there's a huge reason that like things that are easier to access, basketball, soccer, those are the ones that are growing the most.
It does make me think that if I had more money, I could be an Olympic dressage athlete. I just can't afford a horse or dance lessons or horse dance lessons.
Yeah. I just want to caveat too, like I'm not trying to solve the world's problems here, but it's just like there's definitely, a barrier to entry. I think that's people are familiar with that. I'll say the global youth sports market rakes in over $37.5 billion annually. Is that a surprising number to you?
I think it's as surprising as any number.
Hmm.
You know what? Sorry, this is totally unrelated. You see a lot of numbers like that.
Yeah.
I need a standard. I don't even know what it would be, but how does that compare to like goldfish sales? I need something tangible because when you put billions of dollars, I'm like, all right,
I'm with you. That could mean anything.
that could mean anything. Like how much I was at work and I was like, how much does a plane cost? I was like, I don't know. That would put it in perspective.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, we're talking about money here. Do you want to guess? I scoured the web for this. Do you want to guess what the most expensive high school football stadium is? How much it costs to build? And I'll tell you, it sits 18,000 people.
$37 million.
That's a great guess, Paul, but it's a little more. It's $60 million.
Okay. I was order of magnitude, I think.
Yeah, no, actually, I think
I'm
you
happy
did
with that.
really well there. Yeah. This is a stadium in Allen, Texas. It's for Allen High School. It's called the Eagle Stadium. It costs $60 million to complete. It sits 18,000 people. It includes a weight room, a space for wrestling, and a golf simulator.
Yeah, you definitely need that.
You definitely need the golf simulator. Your players are going to need that.
That's so absurd.
I know.
I mean, unless the entire, I don't know where that is, but unless the entire town revolves around that football team, I
don't know.
understand.
I bet it does, though. Yeah. I will say there are other stadiums that sit more people and are more expensive that host like high school games. But this one was the most expensive that I found for one team. All right. One last one for you, Paul. Then I'll wrap it up. An estimated 70.8 million youth athletes play a sport in the United States. What states have the highest participation in youth sports? The two states with the highest participation are Massachusetts and Minnesota. Don't know where that comes
seems
from.
like a random. One of the things I think you might have mentioned is that in Boise, there is a lot of times of the year that you can't play soccer outside.
Yeah.
But in California, you can.
Yeah.
Or, in other warm climates. So it's interesting that those kids, right, probably get a lot more time of the year to play.
Yeah. I'll say just from my experience growing up is when you go to play a California team, they are usually really good because one, they have the population, and two, they can play year round. They never have to take a winter break like we did. And like we would still play indoor and stuff, but it's just way different. So whenever we traveled down to Southern California, like San Diego, Los Angeles, yeah, we would kind of get smacked around by some California teams.
It's cool that you even get to play them. I don't even think I ever got to play outside of Washington.
It was cool. I definitely value that experience. It was fun, even though we got smacked around. It was cool to, go to other states and play. Paul, that wraps up all my fun facts. As far as like resources go, I don't really have any good like youth sports YouTube channel or anything like that.
No, but we don't have a specific YouTube channel, but if you're interested, there are so many YouTube channels online and each sport will be different, right? But if you have any background in the sport, I think you can find resources that are going to be good for you. And I know I talk about wanting to like shadow Alex and kind of like use him as like a good reference point for different coaching aspects, but it's completely unnecessary if you want to just look things up online.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's people out there that are just, they post how to become a coach. So I would strongly, strongly recommend if anyone is listening who's interested. I think it is one of the most incredibly rewarding experiences I've ever had in my adulthood. So if you're interested in coaching, look up how to do it. Look up local
Leagues
clubs
are
in your
always
area.
looking for it.
Yeah. If anyone, I'll put this out there too. If anyone wants to know how to get through the U.S. soccer licensure system, reach out to thisweekiminto@gmail.com and I will be happy to help out.
I'm sure somebody will find that useful. Hey, I mean, you're on track to be an Arsenal coach, right? You just have to pass a couple more levels.
Yeah, that's right.
A couple more promotions.
Yeah, that's all it is, right? Awesome. Okay. Paul, so coming up next, we have Alex Cochrane to talk about his experience with youth sports.
I'll see you then, Hansi.
See you then.
Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the This Week I'm Into podcast. We have Alex Cochrane here to talk about youth coaching. Welcome to the podcast, Alex.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
To start us off, do you want to give a little bit of an introduction to about yourself and then maybe a little bit of your background with youth coaching or youth sports in general?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alex. I born and raised in Seattle. I grew up playing baseball primarily, played a ton of other sports too. Went to college, played college ball there, and am currently entering my 9th season as a head coach. So I've been kind of a player. I've taken that as far as I could, and now I'm going back and coaching youth sports.
Wow, you've been doing it for 9 years. That's a really long time. When did you start doing coaching? Was it during college?
Yeah, it was. I think it was after my freshman year of college. I think that not the summer after my senior year of high school, but that first year between freshman and sophomore years was my first time. So I guess this makes it either 8 or 9. Maybe it's 8. But yeah, spent like 5 or 6 years with an organization in Seattle, and am now entering my 3rd season with Driveline's youth program.
Can you talk, Alex, a little bit about what originally drew you to coaching youth sports?
Yeah, honestly, when I was first getting into it, I wanted a job that was not like a service job. Like I wanted like a part-time job that meant I could be outdoors, meant I wasn't behind a cash register, and so I got this offer to coach a team with my dad, and was just happy to not be working at a food stand or like behind a cash register. Mm-hmm. And so really no expectations going into it. But over the years, I've kind of gained an appreciation for seeing the impact that like your words can have on, a young kid. Yeah. And it's a really, really fulfilling job. And now I don't know if I could see myself not coaching or teaching or something like that, just because I feel like it's a really cool experience.
Totally. Yeah. I really appreciate that, Alex. And could you, I know this is a huge question, but could you bring us through those 9, you said 9 seasons of coaching, right? So from the beginning to where you are now, what are the kind of things you've learned? What has evolved? What's changed between the beginning and 9 seasons in?
Originally, I kind of approached it in the same way that I was coached. So I don't know, for better or worse, took all the coaching cues that I felt worked for me, or that I'd heard repeated growing up, and kind of regurgitated those to my kids. I've always kind of had in mind the negative coaching experience I've had as well, and kind of tried to actively work against the things that I felt didn't work for me. But I feel like I look back at who I was as a coach 5, 6, 7 years ago or seasons ago, and just I would never coach the way that I did back then, knowing what I do now. I don't know. I just feel like gaining more of a perspective from talking to more and more coaches for more and more seasons of experience, become way less reactionary to certain things, way more cognizant of how I approach the officials and how much stake I put into games of 10, 11, 12-year-olds. It's easy to get caught up in the emotions because the kids are emotional, the parents are passionate, right?
Yep.
But I feel like I have a much better grasp on the long-term outlook and, I don't know, the big picture for these kids' development, and not just are we winning tournaments now?
How many games have you been thrown out of, Alex?
0. None.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very impressive.
Okay.
No, none. No. Yeah. I've got a clean record. And I mean, I think I've kind of missed my opportunity to, hopefully, unless I, become a.
You're too level-headed.
Yeah. A dickhead coach again someday. But no, I haven't, which is that's more than some people can say, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty good, man. You've not been thrown out. Some baseball coaches can't say that. So.
Yeah, I definitely remember a lot of mine growing up, at least getting thrown out once or twice.
Yeah,
it's not that deep when you're 10 years old.
Wait, yeah, what does it look like when a coach of a 11-year-old baseball team gets thrown out? What happens?
It's so embarrassing. It's just so. Oh God, it happens. It happens a decent amount. I've only been on the other side of it, coaching across from it, a couple times. Mm-hmm. But I've heard co-coaches for the organization that I run, oh yeah, the other team manager got rung, or this, this coach did X over the weekend and got kicked out. But like personally, I've only experienced it a couple times. It's just so embarrassing for everybody. I feel like I don't know, and if you aren't embarrassed by it, then something's wrong with your culture, like that you created on the team.
Yeah.
Like I just don't understand. No, people get so worked up about it, and the tough thing is like you're probably going to see that umpiring crew again, if not the same day, or like then probably over the same weekend, and if not that same weekend, throughout the course of the same season. Like it's a fairly small world, so like I feel like keeping that in mind, I've started to treat people with a lot more compassion and patience because like I don't want to get on their bad side. Like it's just going to make things worse in the future for me.
Yeah,
with the
definitely.
same like because I'm going to run into them again. So I don't know.
Alex, can you give us an example of one of these things that you're saying that you didn't do as well when you first started coaching to that you like have worked on and are better at now? And I'm curious because you said that you've talked to like coaches who have been in the game for a while, right? And they've kind of helped you. But is that like the only way that you've like learned a new skill? And if it's something like technique or just kind of like coaching style, are there like other mediums other than kind of just like talking to other coaches that you can learn some of the skills?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like I've always tried to keep a fairly individualized approach for each player because not everybody learns like the same way. But I used to like do private lessons with kids, and like I'd give them like certain hitting cues that I feel like worked for me, and they were very like internal cues, like you should have your hands here, or your hand should be doing this in your swing, or something like that. And over the years, I've grown more to appreciate the different ways that people can accomplish the same goals. Like, because if you look around the major leagues, like you see, top 10 hitters in baseball. If you, first 10 guys you think of, like Ohtani, Harper, like Aaron Judge, like they all have different ways of success. Like no one swing looks the same, no one pitching motion looks the same, right? So like I've definitely worked less about like mechanics and technique over the years, and like focused more on training like intent. So like and like giving them like external cues. So like if they're in the batting cage and I notice that they're hitting a lot of balls to the left side, or they're hitting a lot of balls to the end of their bat or something like that, instead of saying like, hey, like don't pull your head or like do XYZ with your swing, it's like, hey, hit a ball to the right center gap for me. Like we give them an external target, their body self-organizes to accomplish that task. Because a lot of the time it's just a slight adjustment. They've taken enough swings in their life where you don't need to make a drastic change. You didn't all of a sudden just become a terrible hitter like overnight. It's just something that's slightly off. So yeah, I guess thinking a lot more externally with the kind of like coaching cues I give guys is definitely one that's changed, and that was instilled in me really by a ton of the guys over at Driveline, and it just makes sense. I guess to me at least.
Yeah, definitely. Alex, speaking of Driveline, could you just give a background of like the team you currently coach and what the whole like league looks like?
Yeah, sure. So this will be my third season with Driveline's youth program. We participate in a local league called Seattle Elite League, which is us and a couple dozen other organizations with varying age, I guess, levels for each organization. Kids that I'm coaching in this upcoming year will be 13, so I've had them since they're 11. And we'll play in a league. It's 15 to 25 games a league play, and then playoffs. So you play each team a few times, 2 or 3 times, and then match up in the playoffs. In addition to that, we'll play, 4 or 5 tournaments typically. This year, we're looking at probably close to like 40 games, which is actually a decent amount fewer than a lot of organizations.
Do you want to touch on why you guys play less games than some of the other organizations? Because I know it's not just out of lack of wanting to play the games.
Yeah, no, 100%. So a lot of what you see in modern youth sports, and really I can only touch on this from like the lens of baseball, but I know that other sports, in talking to like other like coaches, like are dealing with some of the same thing too, is you're seeing guys play like year round. And I understand the thought behind it is like the more game reps, the better you're going to get, right? The more you can like tactically train and be prepared for these situations as they arise. So my organization takes kind of an opposite approach to that. So we spend less time playing games and more time focusing on development. So more time in gym practicing. We have, I guess for my age group, it's only 2 practices per week night, or I guess like during the week, and then 1 on the weekends typically. But for our other age groups, it's 3 midweek practices and then 1 on the weekend. And we run 10 months last year. Starting this year, it's 12 months. So full year round, focusing on building skills that will see them like garner the results that they want to get on the field. It's not just about exposure or going to national showcases and paying all this money to go and compete in these tournaments that the kids aren't going to remember about. It's about their like working towards their long-term goals, whether that's making their high school JV team or whether that's like playing in pro ball. So yeah, we take our off seasons seriously. We take our on-ramp phase. We're kind of building them up back into game shape pretty seriously. And for that reason, we don't play games year round. Our gameplay season typically runs like, March until August instead of March through March or however it is like some organizations run it.
Yeah, Alex, if I can give a little personal plug here, I actually really appreciate what your organization is doing, because as someone who's learning physical therapy, something I've seen is kids are getting Tommy John surgery like younger and younger in baseball. Like you should never see a 12-year-old have to get Tommy John surgery because their UCL ligament is busted from throwing too much. So I think there's it's super wise to just incorporate less practices, more conditioning, that kind of thing into your program, because ultimately that is for the better of the athlete. Even though I know more games might make you a better player, but you got to look out for your body too.
Right. Yeah. There's a strong component that's arm care based as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say that we don't practice any less. We just are much more conscious about what we do at practices.
Yep.
And it's specifically like exerting our arms. So like, right now we're doing a shutdown period for the entire month of August. If pros shut down for a month during the off season, why would we treat 13-year-olds any differently?
Yep.
It's kind of our take. And then there's a slow, gradual build-up where we kind of start out throwing at lower intents and work our way up. Once we've thrown a certain number of weeks in gym, we can get them out on the fields and start working on some of that tactical stuff and, potentially schedule scrimmages and stuff like that. But we're curious. I mean, I won't disagree. Like there are some things that you can only learn by experiencing in game. And there's certain things that will only come up for you to work on, like by playing games. But yeah, there's a lot of value in rest and going about it in a smart way.
Absolutely.
And we had a ton of guys injured last year or started the year off banged up, and by the end of the year everyone was able to throw. They were all healthy. We didn't see anyone get worse on my team, and I really do think it's due to our diligence with working them back, like rehabbing in their programs, and the work that our athletic training team did. You only have like one arm, so you got to take care of that thing, because if it goes, then who cares if you played 800 games by the time you're 14 and have all the experience in the world? Like you can't throw a ball anymore.
Yep. Yeah. Alex, earlier you did mention that you also coach some online athletes. Is that right?
Yeah. So that'll be a new thing for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's upcoming.
That's new to me too. Can you explain like what that is?
Yeah. So I guess Drivelin's one of a few companies that does this. Essentially, people will come to us for a training program, and like whether or not they're in the vicinity of our facility, like we can provide that kind of training program for them. So we'll have them sign up. We'll give them a prescribed like throwing progression. So a lot of what we do revolves around, like for the throwing side, it's around like weighted balls. So as long as we're doing it in a smart way and we're not starting off too crazy with our intent levels and crazy with the weights, like we know that it improves arm strength. Like there's a reason why you see MLB pitchers warming up with them now. So we have them purchase weighted balls, band exercises, etc. They go through this program as given to them by their trainer. I will be one of those trainers in September, and then there's check-ins every month and a half where we just make sure that things are going right, that they're gaining what we feel like they should be gaining, and that's measured by local radar guns. So like if they have access to one in a gym, then we have them record it themselves. Mm-hmm. They have a pocket radar. We have an integration on our platform that uploads that velocity to us. If things aren't working, we can see that they're not working with the data and make adjustments. So basically, it's just giving them access to this throwing program, and then like kind of being their guide through it, being there to bounce questions off of, send video back and forth. Am I doing this drill properly? How's this looking? Like, why am I not gaining this? Like, well, okay, I don't know. Like, what's your schedule like? Have you been adhering to it? All this stuff. So, yeah.
Alex, I'm curious to hear your thoughts because you've talked a decent amount with this online athlete thing, and I think it's for your in-person athletes as well as all this kind of data you can collect now that I feel like was different than when we were in the same like age group.
Mm-hmm.
How have you kind of seen that evolve, either in like your own personal experience or even just as you've been a coach between your different organizations, and kind of like how they utilize different like data that they can collect or different kind of training programs that have been like evolved over the years?
Yeah, sure. So for sure, everyone is a lot more conscious of their metrics, whether it be throwing velocity, bat speed, like power output in the weight room now than they were when we were growing up. And, like I think it's like, at this point, it seems simple. It's still not accepted by a lot of people, but swinging the bat harder means that you hit the ball harder, which means that your batted ball outcomes are going to be better. Like, you're going to hit more singles, doubles, home runs if you're swinging the bat faster, because even your miss hits are going to come off the bat a little bit harder. So we know that training bat speed is good. We also know that throwing harder is good. Like, the harder you can throw a baseball, the more likely you are to get swing and misses. Swing and misses are the best way of preventing the opponent from getting on base and scoring runs. So, like there's more and more people are starting to realize that it is as simple as testing ourselves for those certain metrics and then, I don't know, like working to improve them. There's still a lack of knowledge about proper way to go about that. So certain facilities are better than, or certain organizations are better than others about utilizing that data. But it's pretty generally accepted now that like it's a good thing to throw harder as long as you're doing it and you're approaching it in a healthy way and when to throw hard and when to take it easy and develop bat speed.
You're just curious, Alex, you're coaching 11, 12, 13-year-olds. Like, what kind of output is expected from them?
So it's very dependent on where they are in their biological age. It's like I have kids that are, they're entering 8th grade and they're 4'9", 80 pounds. And then I have kids who are entering 7th grade that are 5'10", 160. Mm-hmm. What I tell the kids most of the time is like, just like compare you to your past self, right? Mm-hmm. At least until we go through puberty. We do have like certain benchmarks that we have posted like in the gym that are like, okay, like this, like if you want to be a high school varsity player, like here's like the expected like exit velocities, throwing velocity, like power output in the weight room. Like here's like body weight. Here's like what the standard is. If you want to play at D1 in college, like here's what those standards are. For the kids, it's out of their control, for so much of it. So
right.
For those smaller guys, like we're just looking for incremental improvement, and then also to like work on the mental side of things and learning multiple positions so that when they do hit puberty, they'll be like ready for it mentally.
Alex, to kind of shift us away from some of the like metric aspect of it, I'm kind of interested, like what do you like most about coaching? Like what aspects of it kind of like make you want to keep doing it?
One thing that's like really cool is when you make a suggestion or I don't know, like you give a kid a certain coaching cue and you see them kind of think about it and accept it. And then they go out and it like makes a tangible change. So like, like you tell a kid to focus on something for a certain round of hitting and they start hitting like super well that round. Like it's pretty cool. The other kind of cool thing and like what I hope to accomplish with a lot of my kids is like when you've taught a kid something or like, I don't know, like when you've interacted with a kid enough where they can kind of self-coach. So like they, you've given them enough information and, enough context for like, okay, what happens like if I'm missing like in this way, or what happens like if I'm throwing all these pitches inside, like what should my adjustment be? Or like if everyone's hitting my curveball when I throw it this part of the zone, like what should my adjustment be? If I can get a kid to like coach himself and like walk himself through that thought process of like, okay, what am I doing now? Like how can I make a slight adjustment to be better? And they can articulate that back to me, then like that's just like that's it right there, is like building this kind of like, I don't know, like I mean, not only like seeing like my own advice Like, because that's obviously like in a selfish way, like that's like super cool, like to see like something that you said like directly, impact the kid, but like also have that kid like internalize the way to think about success and failure in the game and be able to coach themselves.
Yeah, I definitely understand how that's super rewarding.
All right. Well, I'd like to just talk about like, well, one, your coaching philosophy, and then two, like, what does it mean to have a successful season for you? Like, is a successful season, is it like number one in the playoffs? Is it winning the playoffs? Is it my future players are making high school teams? Like, what defines success for you as a coach?
Yeah, good question. I would say it's probably closer aligned to like that third thing you mentioned,
Yeah.
just like setting them up for future success.
I definitely
so like
agree.
yeah, so like I don't know, like I don't know about you guys. I know you guys both played sports growing up, but like I cannot remember personally like where my first tournament was that I won, and how I performed that day and what the final score was. Like I don't remember that at all. What I do remember is the day I got a call from a college coach, and they said they wanted me on their team,
Mm-hmm.
and like I made that commitment, right? So like it's so easy to get wrapped up in the scoreboard results or the tournament results and define a season as successful by like whether or not you won more games than you lost or whether you won X amount of tournaments. But the reality of it is like you're in 10, 15 years from that, like you're not going to remember that. You're going to remember playing baseball with your friends. You're going to remember making your high school team. You're going to remember playing in college, right? So we and a lot of organizations don't feel the same way. So some do, but a lot, they're all in about winning at the young ages. But for me, it's definitely like, did I get through this season with my roster like healthy? Cool. Did I get through the season like with everyone still loving baseball? Cool. And then did I get through the season and see all these athletes like measurably improve in all aspects? And if the answer to all that is yes, and like it wasn't thrown off by injuries or stuff that we couldn't control, then that's a very successful season in my eyes. And like some coaches or programs or parents like might not feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't change their minds. I can just tell them like from the experience that I had, right? And like if some of these guys are like first time parents and going through the select sports thing for the first time, like I totally understand like seeing a program that's winning all these tournaments, being like, I want to play for that program. My kid's gonna get better by playing with those teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
I cannot emphasize enough like how little that matters in the grand scheme of things. As long as the kids having fun, they're getting better, and they're working towards their goals.
100%. Also, like Alex, you mentioned like a goal. Like, do they still like baseball at the end of the season?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's like such a goal to reach for, because I think we've all had like good and bad coaches in the past. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Could you like maybe touch on like what you think a good coach does, and maybe you can bring in like maybe good or bad coaches you've had in the past also.
Yeah. I mean, I won't really like I'm not gonna get into specifics like with regards to like certain coaches, but like
yeah, that's fair.
He's unfortunately still in that world. I can shit on my old
yeah. Like I don't know. I feel like the coaches that can kind of recognize that it may require a different approach to get through to a different kid, and who are willing to put in that extra effort to try to find that approach that works for that kid. I think that's super special. I think that recognition of like shortcomings that a player could not control and super special. I think that rewarding output of a player instead of the outcomes is special. Instead of, hey, did you get, how many hits did you get today? It's like, how many times do you put the ball and play hard? Like, how many times do you, like have a quality at bat up there? It's not like, did you make that diving catch? It's like, did you make that like the effort to get there? Yeah, rewarding output over outcome, having an individualized approach to kids. And I guess for me, like a lot of the time, like when I had negative coaching experiences, it was due to like kind of like a lack of clarity and communication about my role on the team, or because I'd been through it all. I've been the best player on a team. I've been benched on a team. I've been on a C team. I played college ball. Like in like the times where I've struggled the most is when there's a communication breakdown about like why certain like decisions are being made. So one thing I'm super conscious about is like trying to explain my coaching decisions to the kids as they happen, and like treating them like adults. And like if a kid's not going to start the game, like tell them like what I need to see from them, and tell them that like I expect them to get in this like X inning and be ready for their chance. And because I don't know, a lot of the time coaches will tend to like gravitate towards their seasoned players, or like, which oftentimes at the youth age, just like the kids who hit puberty first, and kind of neglect the rest of their guys. So someone who's able to like raise the skill cap, not only their best players, but also like of the kids who like came in like with maybe not the highest skill set on the team.
Alex, kind of shifting to the opposite side of that topic of like what makes a really good coach. Are there things that you've noticed that about like the coaching in general, and not like what makes a bad coach, but coaching in general, that you would like to see change, or like things that you think that like could be improved on in kind of like the realm of coaching that you don't currently like love?
Yeah, sure. I feel like a lot of the time, like, and this is with successful teams and unsuccessful teams alike, I feel like one thing that I don't personally like that much is when a coach is kind of like a drill sergeant, when they're out there screaming at their kids, to steal an extra base, or yelling at the kids like where to go with the ball, like when it's hit to them in the field, instead of letting the kids figure it out on their own. I think it breeds kind of an environment, like an anxiety-inducing environment for the kids, and also like doesn't give them the autonomy to like learn from their mistakes. I'll always talk to a kid like usually like after the play, actually after the inning most of the time, about like something that we could improve on. And like I'm not gonna say I'm perfect on this too. Like I've definitely done it before too, but like yelling across the field at them like mid play or after it happens like does nothing to build them up for next time. Like it's only going to create kind of a hostile environment. And like if you exhibit that behavior, then like what kind of example are you providing for your co-coaches and your parents and like your kids on the team? So like, yeah, one of the things is like that kind of like hostile language, and that kind of direct reactionary stuff that you see so often. And I've done that in the past before. Like I'm not perfect, and I'm much more conscious of it now, and I totally understand like it's emotional. Yeah, that's probably like the number one thing that I don't super like about the way other coaches kind of go about it.
The other kind of aspect that I was interested in, especially since you probably have done a lot of coaching with these more organized groups, I call them travel teams, but they might have like a more specific name. Do you notice any difference between these like more competitive groups and the like recreational, like rec league groups? Like I don't know if you've ever coached any rec league, like a middle school or like a high school team through like a school, but do you notice any difference between maybe when you play them and like how they're structured, or how like well they're run, and if you can kind of get the same experiences in either one, or if you have any like thoughts on how, like if somebody should do one of those travel teams, like what kind of benefits there are?
So I feel like the difference between like a rec league, like a little league, and then like a club baseball team, a lot of the time it comes down to like player interest. So like if you're playing on a club baseball team, like you're making commitment with your time to practice a certain number of days a week and play all these extra games. Most of the time, that interest is like if a family's going to make that investment in their kid, it's going to be because their kid's like genuinely interested in it. Whereas these rec leagues, like you'll definitely have some of that, but you'll also have a pretty large chunk of the parents that are signing their kid up because they need to be active. And so like you see like kind of a pretty large talent drop off after the first like the top like few kids on every little league team. Not only that, but the quality of coaching varies so tremendously. Like you could luck out and get like an ex-pro guy who's like son's on the team and he's coaching the team and he's fantastic, right? You could also get like the worst, most obnoxious, like most reactive, like hostile parent that like ruins your baseball experience.
Yeah.
Because like there's no like, I guess like vetting of the coaches in a sense, with them all being like volunteers. So like I think that if you are interested in playing a sport competitively, like it does make sense to go to a club program. I will say that like before the age of like 11, 12, 13, it's not super necessary. again, there's something to be said about game experience, but like at those younger age groups, like 9, 10U, sometimes 11U, like there's some of that like kind of babysitting feel that goes on where it's like, okay, are you here because you like baseball? Are you here because your parents want you to be active? And like when you have 90% of the team that is there to compete and be active, like group of 9-year-olds can totally be derailed by just a kid or two that is working to the contrary. But yeah, I think that like beyond like the little league age, so like beyond like 12U, I think that like if you want to take it seriously nowadays in the States at least, like finding an org to join is probably in your best interest.
On the coaching side, do you think that if I was looking to get into coaching like my own team or like being like an assistant coach on a team, do you think that it's worthwhile to try to find like one of those rec leagues, as in like they're more obtainable for people who like have no coaching experience, right? You were talking about vetting, and like obviously I would be one of those people who have no idea what the hell's going on. Hopefully I wouldn't be like deranged or anything.
Right.
But in terms of like trying coaching out for the first time, like would you recommend doing it in a rec league or trying to find like a club team to be like an assistant coach for, and so then maybe there's a little bit more direction?
Yeah, no, I mean, either one is great. I think that if you're interested in coaching, like approaching your local little league and like volunteering is a great idea. And like obviously you have no idea what you're doing, like you can look up resources online, like there's stuff that show you like there's deep rabbit holes you can go down about player development and proper coaching and stuff like that. If you do have access to being an assistant coach too for someone who's been there before, like that's also a good idea. But if it really is as simple as like it's like I don't know, like I would coach like regardless of the I guess enthusiasm level like of like the kids that I coach. Like it obviously helps if they're all like focused and ready to work hard, but like I don't like it because I have a group of kids that I like. I like it because of the environment that it creates where like I can see all these different kids getting better. So like if you want to truly test if you like coaching in general versus coaching a specific group of kids, like maybe Little League is the way to go, because like you're gonna have to struggle through that the kid who's clearly doesn't want to be there, or the kid with anger management issues, or the kid who's I don't know, like you're gonna see a lot more of a variety. So maybe I would recommend starting off like kind of local.
Yeah, that's perfect. Going off that, Alex, like obviously the theme of this podcast, right, is like picking up a new hobby, a new passion every week. So what is kind of the elevator pitch for like, why should someone pick up, youth coaching?
I think it's super valuable in developing communication skills and in like kind of developing like how you, I don't know, like think about and explain certain concepts to people. Like I enjoy coaching kids because it forces me to take like my knowledge of the game that I've accumulated over the past 2 decades of playing and distill it down in a way that a kid who their 5th year of playing baseball or something like that can understand, right? So like I don't know what the exact quote is, but like you don't truly have a grasp on a concept if you can't explain it to a first grader or whatever. Like I totally agree with that. So like I think that like I don't know, like if it's good practice for dealing with people. It's really fulfilling because you see them grow over time. You get to kind of act like a kid sometimes too, which is pretty fun. Like I go out there and like I'll do drills with them and I'll do competitions with them, and like it breaks me out of like my kind of like existential like God, like another day of being an adult. Like if I'm able to like run around with some kids for like a couple hours. Good exercise.
Yep.
Ton of benefits.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. And Alex, do you have any plugs you want to put in, either personally or any organization you want to give a shout out to, any YouTube channels, anything like that?
I mean, no personal plugs. If you enjoyed any of like my kind of like approach to coaching or whatever, definitely check out Driveline Youth on Twitter, on Instagram. Go to drivelinebaseball.com. We're pretty representative of our approach over there, and we have tons of blogs and stuff like that.
That's perfect. Awesome. Alex, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Huge thank you for listening to this week's episode of the This Week I'm Into podcast, and a huge thank you to Alex Cochrane for sharing his passion on youth sports and coaching. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for the next episode, please reach out at thisweekiminto@gmail.com, and please give us a follow on Instagram at thisweekiminto. Also, please rate us 5 stars and share this episode with a friend. We're doing our best to grow the podcast, and your help really goes a long way. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. And we're back, folks, to the top of the 3rd inning. The Greenwood Grasshoppers are up 2 over the Ballard Blue Jays here at this amazing Little League stadium. ESPN has kindly given Travis Kelce a day off, so we have the entire production crew here to cast this game. We have even gotten our teams mic'd up today to give the viewers at home a little insight into these amazing players, and what a dream, because it's been a roller coaster of a game so far, huh, Paul?
That's right, Hans. Lots of action on the field today. The kids are giving it their all out there, and you can see the determination on their faces. Oh, wait a minute. Looks like there's some commotion over there in the Grasshoppers' dugout. Let's cut down to them and see what it is. Jimmy, what was that out there? How many dandelions do you have to pick before you'll pay attention? Your eye is never on the ball. If you're going to stand there like a statue, I'm going to have to pull you from the game. This isn't T-ball anymore. You're 10. You got to act like it.
Sorry, Coach. I'll do better next time.
Next time? You think this is about next time? This is the game right now. You've got to focus, Jimmy, or there may not be a next time. You don't want to let your team down now, do you?
No, Coach.
Then get your head in the game. When you're up to bat again, I want to see some fire in your eyes. Got it?
Yes, Coach. Yikes! That was a tough one to watch. The Grasshoppers coach seems pretty hard on his players, don't you think, Paul?
Yes, Hans, I have to say that's not really the best approach, especially at this level. These kids are here to learn the game and have fun, not be berated like they're in the big leagues. You can see how much it affects his confidence when they're spoken to like that.
Absolutely. There's a fine line between motivating your players and tearing them down. It looks like that kid is taking it pretty hard.
For sure. The way that coach communicates can really make or break that young player's experience. But let's get back to this batter. We got a 2-2 count on little Tommy. And here comes the pitch. And a swing and a miss. That's strike 3.
Ooh, hey, let's take a look at the Blue Jays dugout for a different coaching perspective. Hey, Tommy, listen to me. I know you're disappointed about that strikeout, but don't let it get to you. You're a great hitter. We've seen it before, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
No guessing about it. I've seen you crush the ball in practice. You just need to stay relaxed and remember your training. Remember how we talked about your stance? Keep your knees bent a little more and don't forget to breathe, okay?
Okay, Coach.
Good. And hey, next time you're up there, just imagine it's you and the ball, no one else. Clear your mind and go for it. You got this, kid.
Thanks, Coach.
Now that's what we like to see, Paul. Coach Martinez is really building Tommy up after a tough at-bat. You can tell he wants to help his players improve while keeping their spirits high.
Absolutely, Hans. That is what Little League should be about. Teaching the fundamentals, encouraging your kids, and making sure they're having fun. Coach Martinez is doing a great job of that.
For sure, Paul. It's clear that he understands the importance of positive reinforcement and teaching these kids how to handle setbacks. That's a valuable lesson on and off the field.
Couldn't agree more. Let's see how those different coaching styles play out as we move into the bottom of the 3rd. Stay tuned, folks.